We're going to read today from Luke chapter 7, and I'm going to read from verse 36 this morning. And it says this: When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. When the Pharisee who had invited Jesus saw this, he said to himself, "If this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner." When we look at this passage in Luke, there's something quite spectacular, I think, about this encounter with Jesus around the table. First, we have a Pharisee who is, by all accounts, someone who doesn't even like Jesus. And yet he's invited Jesus around for a meal, probably because it's the polite thing to do after a teacher has spoken. This was a Sabbath, so it's the polite thing to do to invite a teacher or a rabbi around to have a meal and to maybe talk about whatever was spoken about in the temple that day. So he's probably just doing the polite thing, mostly because he probably wants to check this guy out a bit more. He wants a bit more of a close look to see, is this guy is he any good? Because not all the Pharisees were so anti-Jesus. There was a few who were like, I'm on the fence. I'm just going to sit on the fence for a while until he really proves himself. But he was really looking for his own benefit and to see whether Jesus would prove himself. And I love that the scriptures tell us that Jesus reclined, because I don't know about you, but if that was me and I was walking into someone's house where I knew I was going to be judged and I knew I was going to be feel like I was going to be interrogated, I would have been on the defense. So no reclining. I would have been like, all right, yeah, I got this. All right, come at me. Give me the questions. Let's go. But that's not who Jesus was, because he was relaxed. He knew who he was. He knew he didn't have to prove anything. He knew that he had nothing to hide. And he operated that way whether he was in the midst of a table of Pharisees or with his closest disciples, because that's who he was. That was the character of Jesus. In addition, we have a sinful woman who is an uninvited guest, because in those days, the doors to the homes would be open. They would just be open, and so random people could just walk into your home, and did so quite regularly, just when there was a meal happening or whatever. Who finds that quite confronting? Just to have random people walk into your home? Yeah, I kind of do. I mean, I love it and I hate it all at the same time. I love the idea of having a house that's so open and welcoming that anybody feels like they can just walk in at any point. But I also fear that my arch nemesis from school would just walk in. Guys, don't tell them who it is, because it could be bad. But I just feel like that would really throw me, and I don't know how I'd cope. But more than that, what if I didn't have enough food or something? And what if my house is not clean? And we've talked about that before. It doesn't matter. Come as you are. It's good. But that freaks me out, but I also love it at the same time. So I'm not sure where I sit. But it wasn't unusual in that day and age for somebody just to pop in. And this was an uninvited guest. So she's uninvited, and she discovers that Jesus is going to be at this home, and she invites herself to the table. We have two vastly different postures. We have the Pharisee who is judging Jesus, and we have the woman who is pursuing Jesus. We have the Pharisee who has done the polite thing, but hasn't even shown Jesus the bare basic hospitality that would have been normally shown. Not all the time, but normally shown when somebody comes to your home for a meal. It says in Luke 7 from verse 44, Jesus said to Simon, "When I came into your house, you gave me no water for my feet, but she washed my feet with her tears and dried them with her hair. You gave me no kiss of greeting, but she has been kissing my feet since I came in. You did not put oil on my head, but she poured perfume on my feet." Because we know the motive of the Pharisee was to invite Jesus around, judge for himself whether this guy was worth listening, like, who is this guy really? And then we have the woman who sought out Jesus in order that she might have an encounter with him. She sought him out, even though she probably knew she wasn't welcome, even though she knew she wasn't invited. It didn't matter. She was willing to risk it all because she was so overcome with this idea of encountering and connecting with Jesus, and the gratitude that she had for the forgiveness and the acceptance she knew she found in this teacher, this person. She is moved to tears and extravagantly honors Jesus by washing his feet with her tears and anointing them with oil.